Welcome to another stellar edition of Rock It Up. I am your host, Darren Flower, and today we're going to be talking to a manager, and you are going to learn a lot, so stay tuned. Alright, this is Rock It Up TV, and we have a very special guest, and her name is Kathy Hahn, who is an industry veteran, and she's been doing this for a number of years, and we are going to dive right in and talk about her role as a manager, and talk about all things that relate to her role as a manager. Okay, so first of all, why does a band or an artist need a manager? When do they need a manager?
At the level where the artist is looking at recording, going to radio, touring, and it becomes bigger than just something that you're doing in your basement for yourself, you might want to look at bringing a manager on board to help you with the artist development aspect of your career and planning, financing, and so on. I know that many artists will have a preconception that an artist manager functions as a bank and will find the financing for what your projects are. And it's really up to you to find the financing. The manager is really there more as a business manager and an artist development side to help you maximize on the opportunities at hand. And that will be everything from how you wear your hair, to what your image is, to the right photography, to which radio trackers to bring on board for the specific genre that you're looking at developing, whether you need to find somebody from a production standpoint to do radio mixes for you, and from a production, like recording side, all the different aspects that you do not have the expertise yourself as an artist coming on board and as an emerging artist or a new artist to understand what this is. And then as you develop and go through the various stages of your career, you would need that manager there on an ongoing basis, or a manager there on an ongoing basis to help you manage the various aspects of your career. The more important you become, the more you need that extra support.
Does a band actually need a manager?
I believe they do. I manage an artist named Valdi who had a mega hit in the 70s with a record called Play Me a Rock and Roll Song. I've been working with him for about 10 years now. And he's at a stage where his career kind of runs itself. He's out there, he does about 250 show dates a year. He plays soft seat theaters. The money is there. He's always recording. He'll put a record out a year, and we're always involved with media and so on. Even Valdi needs a manager. Really, the more important you become, the more you need a manager.
What should an artist expect from a manager?
I think expectations are going to vary depending on the personalities of the individual artists. At the end of the day, it's like finding a marriage partner where you really need to have somebody that you know is going to have your back, that you can trust implicitly to manage your career and make decisions on your behalf. A lot of times you're going to have to believe blindly in what they're saying, because unless you've actually had a hit record or been at the top of the charts, you don't have the experience of what that means. So you're going to be listening to people who are going to help you kind of steer the course. It's not something you'd be able to navigate on your own. You'd be hitting walls, you'd waste a lot of time. If you got a manager in play, then they'll be able to help you fast track that process and deal with what the essentials are, and cut out, help you save, it will save a lot of time, but it really requires a deep level of trust, and that becomes a personal thing. If you're dealing with people that you don't trust, then you're dealing with the wrong you're dealing with the wrong manager. So I think it's critical, if you're dealing with a manager, that you trust them. I've also seen a lot of situations too where up and coming emerging artists end up by paying managers a substantial amount of money or a retainer on a monthly basis going forward, and not much happens with their career. You really have to find someone who believes in you and is willing to take a risk and work with you from the beginning all the way through the various levels. But trust becomes really important. You can sign a management contract with any artist or the other way around, but unless you actually trust each other, it's not worth the paper that it's written on. So you have to actually believe in each other. It's got to be a mutual thing. So it's like finding the right marriage partner.
Right, because the
right
manager
chemistry.
has to believe in the band, and the band has to believe in the manager, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So if a band was a ship, and technically, I guess the manager would be the captain?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And steering. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how does a band go about finding a manager? This probably seems like a really difficult task.
I think in Canada, I think if you were to pick some of the bands that you really admire and do some research and find out who took them to that level of their career at different stages. It may not all be current, but it might have been something you remember from like a couple of years ago or something that happened. Do some research. Get online and start Googling and check, check websites and so on, and do some research and find out who the principal people were behind various artists at different levels in their career that really made an impact on you as an artist, and where you would want something similar to happen to you.
Right. And what does a good manager do for a band?
We're not a bank. That's rule number one. There's
That's a record company's job, right?
It's not even the record company's job.
No?
It's the artist's job to find the resources and the money. The manager will be your partner, and maybe you go out and you find investment capital and so on. You have to work together, but don't expect the manager to sit there and write you a check so you can go into the studio and make a record or hire a publicist or whatever. You have to find the money together. You have to find the revenue sources together, and you're in it from the beginning. Now, a manager will take a percentage at the end of the day for everything that you make. But if they are there on the same page as you, helping you develop those streams of revenue, then they're absolutely entitled to it because it's found money. It's money that you wouldn't have unless you actually had them involved in that aspect of your career.
So managers work on commission then?
They work on, a good manager would work on commission because they're willing to take the risk if they believe in you.
So when you're working on commission, that you're almost inspired to go find, them work or do.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. So that's, I guess, one that could be an advantage and a disadvantage.
Yes, a manager will be the one who will help you put a proper team together, because you're going to need to have more than just a manager. You're going to need, at a certain level, you're going to need an agent, and you're going to need to put an infrastructure behind you. You're going to have to look at export. It helps if your manager has some expertise or information or knowledge, or knows how to access information about other territories that you might want to release your material in that might be suitable for you. Canada might be a good market for different music genres, but it may also work well, say, for Asia, or it may work well in Australia, or it might work well in Germany. There's other record markets around the world where you can make some money as well. I think it's important for a manager to have a point of view that's more international than just local.
Okay. So if a band or artist, all they have is a manager, but they don't have a booking agent, a publicist, and whatnot, does the manager act as, this and that?
If you have
by
a
default?
good manager, yeah. If you have a good, the manager will work with you on getting the show dates and stuff like that. But at a certain level, an agent will want to get involved with you once you start making money. It's almost like when you no longer need an agent, you're at that level where the shows are coming in and so on. That's when the agents want a piece of the action.
Oh, okay.
And if you bring in the right agents and you have the right team around you, then that's going to accelerate that aspect of your career as well. Because if you have a record out there and you have a tracker and they're working it, and you've got a publicity team and you've got, you're out there doing interviews and so on, and doing promotion and supporting a record out there, touring becomes critical.
Excellent. So what is the difference between a manager and an agent? I know the difference, but again, because I always seem to know these answers, but for the benefit of those who don't know.
Agents, for the most part, their strength is not artist development. I think, from my own personal point of view, and I know it would vary manager to manager, I think artist development is critical. And that would fall into the role of the management side. Agents will take what you've already created and packaged and put out there and help you get more bookings and keep it going.
Excellent. Okay, so how does a manager get paid? We talked a little bit about commission, but do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I would certainly stay away from. I hear too many horror stories of artists that are emerging artists.
Let's talk about it.
That have art, managers on retainers and so on, and really their careers are kind of stalled or there isn't much happening, and you have to be very careful about getting involved with people that are not willing to take a risk and that don't believe in you. So it's. A good manager will take a percentage of the opportunities that they create for you to generate revenue.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about a good manager, but what about a bad manager? What is the characteristics of a bad manager, in your opinion?
Nothing happens. There's no forward momentum in your career.
I see.
You end up by playing the same places over and over and over again. You're not out there supporting a record. I firmly believe that if you're going to be playing, it should be in support of a record. Otherwise, don't waste your time. If you're an original artist, then what you're trying to do is promote your original music. If you're out there just on a bar circuit and so on, and constantly, then really you're selling more beer than you are records, and your audience at some point is going to get very tired of seeing you over and over and over again without seeing any forward momentum in your career, or that your career is actually going somewhere. It's really important that from an imaging standpoint, you present opportunities that your audience knows that your career is actually moving and going somewhere.
Okay.
Bad manager, they don't really care about that side of it. They may care about it, but they may not be successful in achieving that.
Right.
It's artist development.
So every decision the manager makes, should it be followed through to a T, or can band members, or should they be allowed to question their judgment here and there?
They can question their judgment, but unless they've actually had a hit record and taken their career to the top, and they've got the experience of actually having done what a manager does, then I think they need to defer to the manager. I think it's really important that the trust factor be there. If you don't respect the people that are telling you what to do, then there's going to be issues and there's going to be problems. So then maybe you need to look at a different team, or you maybe need to rethink what you're doing as well, and because it works both ways. And I've seen too many things where the manager gets blamed when the career doesn't happen, or a member of the team will get blamed if a career doesn't happen. But if the career takes off, then it's the band that did that. It's never the band that did that. It's always the team behind the band that created the opportunities for them to be able to do that.
Right on. Okay, we are talking to industry veteran Kathy Hahn right now. It's a very special guest, Rock It Up, and you've been on the show once before already. And when we come back from commercial break, we're going to get more into this. So make sure you stay tuned, because we have a lot to learn.
Rock It Up would not be possible without the help from our sponsors, like CFRE Radio. For more information, please visit cfreradio.com. Sherwood Mortgage Group. Longtime friends serving longtime customers. Call Chris D'Souza at 416-884-2984. Loretta and Sherilyn Flower at Remax Realty Enterprises. For more information, please visit flowerteamrealestate.com or call 905-822-2200. Nude Buddha Tattoo Studio, located at 42 Bronte Street South, Milton, Ontario. Call 905-203-0737 or visit nudebuddhatattoo.com. Mississauga Arts Council. Connect, create, engage, support. Find them at mississaugaartscouncil.com or on Facebook and Twitter under Miss Arts Council.
All right, we're back on Rock It Up TV, and I'm your host, Darren Flower, and we're with Kathy Hahn, who's an industry veteran, okay, and we're talking all about her role as a manager, okay? So let's just get right back into it. How important is a good lawyer?
A good lawyer is critical. Both the artist and the manager should have a lawyer when they go in to negotiate contracts. They should have different managers. If you're dealing with a manager and a manager recommends, unless you're doing an equal partnership, in which case you would have the same manager, don't listen to a manager that is going to encourage you to use the same manager as them, because if you ever ended up in a court of law, you'd have to be on two different sides of the table. It would be a conflict of interest. So you need to have two different managers, or a different manager or a different lawyer from your manager. And also, when you're looking, if it's a single artist or a solo artist, then the contract would be done under that person's performing name. But if you have a band, you've got to be wary of the fact that you could sign a contract with as a band, but also individually, you as individuals. And if something happened with the band, then and you had signed rights away as an individual artist, then it makes it very difficult for you to perform under your own name following that. It's really important that you could get yourself, there's so many different pitfalls and so on when you're getting down to like negotiating contracts. And it's absolutely critical that you have a good lawyer. And it has to be a lawyer. Different lawyers have different strengths and different weaknesses. It has to be a lawyer as like a manager that you trust and that you believe in and that you know has your back and that you're comfortable with.
Excellent. Now, how important is a manager's contact? I mean, that's one of the reasons why you'd want a manager. Hopefully, they have enough contacts to help further your career, right?
Absolutely, and it's one of the things that you need to look at when you're looking at bringing in a manager is what level of contacts and what circles they operate in. But don't think that because if you do have access to those people via your manager, you have to understand that those contacts are still via your manager. They're not your contacts. And there's protocols that have to be followed. And at a certain level, at a very immature level, it wouldn't be important. But the people that operate at the higher levels of this business, it's everything. It's absolutely critical. It's a hidden protocol, and it will show your level of maturity as an artist if you have respect for that or not. And it can also, if you make the wrong move, completely decimate your career.
Right. I mean, and that's one of the things I would think about, like, while looking to managers, like, what can they do for me and who do they really know? How connected are they, right?
Yeah.
That's something that's really important for, like, people to think about.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Now, what about some of these pitfalls that you talked about? You referenced the word pitfalls.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to talk about that? Elaborate?
It really comes down to its protocol. A protocol is really nothing more than common sense, but it's having an understanding of seeing too many things that either end up in court or don't end up in court, or potential that is never realized because an artist did something that they didn't understand was wrong. And that's why it's so important that you listen to the manager. By it's not what you know that's going to hurt you in this business. It's what you don't know
right.
that's going to hurt you. So you have to have a manager that you will respect and you will listen to. Whether you agree with them or not doesn't matter. You need to know that they know what they're doing and that they've got a track record for being successful at what they've done or for what they do, and that's really all you need to know. And the rest of it is up to them. The trust factor becomes critical because you're going to have to trust them. If it's the right person, you're going to have to trust them blind.
Right. And sorry, go on.
Yeah, and you need to acknowledge that you don't know what they know. And your ego, if you're an artist, we might have touched on this in the songwriting, I'm not sure. If you're an artist, you have to have an ego. You can't get up on stage and sell yourself unless you have an ego. And oftentimes it's that ego that's going to get in the way at that very fundamental level with those basic relationships, just in terms of common sense. It's like, well, no, I know better. Well, actually, no, you don't.
Well, and that's the thing, too. I mean, an artist is an artist. Their job is to write the best music they can, right? And it's almost like, going to a doctor. If you go to a doctor because you smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day and you're wondering why you're wheezing and you're in poor health,
yes,
you know what
exactly.
I mean?
And why it's
you
not
have to
working.
listen to the doctor because it's his job. He has the expertise into,
Yes.
guiding you and, about your health.
Yeah.
Now, that's part of the reason why you need a manager, because they have the experience.
Yeah.
And they know better than the artist most of the time.
Yes.
Right? Most of the time.
You can go to Canada. We have a thing called Music Managers Forum. It's an association for managers. You can Google them too if you're looking for managers and see what other artists they're representing and see if you've got enough going on where you can get their get their attention and get them interested in what you're doing. But at the most, you're gonna have to do a lot of the legwork as an artist. You're gonna have to do a lot of the stuff alone until you reach a certain pitch in your career where an artist becomes important.
Oh, okay. Artist, legwork, that doesn't seem like something that an artist would want to do. All I think, all they want to do is just write their songs and stuff like that, and that's not really what
Right,
it's all
and,
about.
and it's a myth to think that if you sign a record contract or if you sign a management contract, that's where the work stops. It actually is where the work starts.
So if you sign a manager contract,
Yep.
then basically you don't just have to like sit back and just kind of kick up your heels and let them do all the work. You
No.
still have to work.
You have to do you have to do what you're told. And
Really?
here's a big myth. If you sign a record deal, if you sign a manager contract and so on, you really don't have a lot of creative control over what happens.
Why is that?
Because if you did, you'd be famous already. There's certain things that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do radio mixes. You're going to have to think about marketing campaigns as an artist, from an artist standpoint, in order to make your career happen. And if you've got artist management behind you, and you've got like a marketing team, and you've got an imaging team, and they've got expertise, or you have a great photographer, and so on, all of these people are going to be essential tools in you being able to achieve what your goals are. And it's teamwork. It's teamwork all the way.
Absolutely. And it takes a team to build the artist, right?
Yes, absolutely.
A smart
Yeah,
lady
and-
once
and
told me that.
For the most part, companies don't want to deal with the artist directly. They're only interested in making sure that the artist has an infrastructure. Then it's like you're bigger than life. You have to have an infrastructure.
And professionally, it's good to have a manager that's going to be able to coordinate all that kind of stuff, because it makes you look like you're taking yourself seriously.
Exactly.
Because nobody wants to talk to the artist.
No,
Right?
they don't. And I know, for instance, in Asia, they won't deal with the artist directly. They will only deal with the artist manager or the artist representative. They don't want, because they don't want to offend you if there's something wrong or what. A manager understands from a business standpoint what will have to happen in order to take it to the next level. The artist is too close to it. They're just too close.
Okay. So, in your
It's
opinion,
hard for them to be objective about themselves.
does every artist need a manager?
If they're going to be really successful, you absolutely need a manager. And it's not about, the old guys are controlling the shop or whatever. It's because they're good at what they do.
Oh.
And they have a level of expertise that you can't possibly have, any more than you could actually pick up the phone and call, a station manager or a program director or music director and get your record played without hiring a tracker or going through a promotion team or so on. I mean, you have to build a team.
And that's exactly how I feel about things as well, too.
And it may be that at a certain level you have a falling out, or you outgrow each other, or you move off. It's like a marriage. It's exactly like a marriage. You have to approach it like a marriage.
Well, I've never been married before. I mean, the thought doesn't seem very appealing to me, but I know that I need a manager, and I'm very grateful that I have one. Here's another question that I wanted to ask you. I've been dying to know. How do you monetize your music? How does an artist monetize their music?
You have to develop the various streams of revenue. So it can come from record sales, it can come from live touring, it can come from offstage record sales, and there's pitfalls to that as well, depending on what kind of venues you're playing, whether you can sell your merchandise or not. If you're playing a festival, it's very difficult to sell your material on site, because usually during a festival situation, one show rolls into another show, and you never really have the audience coming to buy your stuff at the end of your particular segment of the festival. So you have to have people walking through the crowds selling. These are not things that you're going to think about unless you actually have the experience of doing this, which is why you need like a management team in play to help you with this stuff. So live, and then branding as well. There's marketing opportunities. I had an artist that we could have made some money. I developed a relationship with a particular sponsor that was interested in putting the release out with some material that they were making. There's various marketing opportunities that you can create as well. But as an artist, it may not be how you're thinking, and unless you've come from an advertising background or a sponsorship background, these are not things that you're going to think of when you're making your music, which is why another reason why you need to have a team in play to help you with these decisions. And you don't know how much money you're not making. For instance, YouTube. It's not a popularity contest. If you have everybody shooting your shows and putting your stuff up there, and you don't actually have the stuff registered to your name, anybody else can claim ownership of those clips. And it's money that's going to be made off of your name, somebody else that you don't know. And if you were to go after them from a legal standpoint, you would have to prove ownership of what those clips are. So YouTube is not a popularity contest. It's an opportunity for you as an artist to make some money. Anytime your video gets streamed, if you've got it registered and you've done the paperwork, you can make money on this stuff. I don't know very many artists that are even aware that that opportunity exists. Most of them view it as a popularity contest. Oh, gee, I'm so popular, I've had 100,000 hits or whatever, and never made any money on it because they never registered it.
I see. And I guess that's just, out of ignorance, too.
Yeah,
They don't know any better.
it's out of ignorance. You don't know, and you're not expected to know. What you should be doing, though, is trying to find out who the people are that do know and do some research and so on. There's funding opportunities as well that you can investigate. And as an artist, for the most part, because it's more cultural when you're dealing as an artist versus the trade side, which your manager would be part of or your record label would be part of, there's two aspects to the money. And one of them is cultural. You could go after funding from your various arts councils. That's their mandate, is to promote the cultural side of the industry. So then it's not as driven on how many records are you going to sell, etc. It's really about promoting your music as part of a Canadian landscape or from a cultural standpoint. Then there's also companies like Factor in Canada, which support the trade side of it. So if you as an artist had a record label as well, and then the record label could go after funding if they're entitled or they make enough money, and so as a record label. But that's the business side.
Hold on for a second. Sorry to interrupt. Factor.
Yep.
What is that again? For the benefit of those who don't know?
Factor is the foundation to, I'm not sure what it stands for specifically, but because they changed their name a couple of years ago, Foundation to Assist Canadian Talent on Recordings.
And that's really key for people to know.
And it's an organization that's been set up to help Canadian artists record. And so, for instance, we have 1/10 of the population of the U.S. So we have 1/10 of what the sales potential is on any record that you're going to put out to market, versus the U.S., which would be able to recoup a lot easier. They'd be able to recoup the recording expenses because they can sell to a wider population locally. And so we've got situations like Factor that have come into play to help support Canadian talent and get their careers off the ground. And there's various grants and so on. It's factor.ca is the website. And then you also have, in Ontario, you've got the OMDC, Ontario Media Development Corporation, which has set something up called the Ontario Music Fund. These are all more trade-based than from a business standpoint. And you have your Toronto Arts Council, you have Mississauga Arts Council, you've got your Ontario Arts Council, then you have your the Canadian Arts Councils. And they also provide opportunities, but more from the artist as a standalone than from a trade standpoint.
Excellent. Well, Kathy, you've been an excellent guest, and this is your second appearance here on Rock It Up TV. I could have you again and again and again and again, but unfortunately for us, we're actually almost out of time. So I just want to say thank you very much for being a part of my show again.
Happy to come back anytime.
Yes, and we'll talk more about this, and I'm really happy that people got a chance to hear what you have to say because it's really important. And I think they're going to learn a lot from this episode. So
thanks.
Thank you.
One other thing I want to add is for artists looking for sources of funding, you can also do crowdfunding, which you pretty well should. Pretty well everyone should know about that. If they don't, where you can raise your own money through your own fan base to try to get money for recording or for video and production and so on. That's a very important vehicle now that we have because of the internet.
Excellent. Okay, so I guess that just pretty much wraps everything up for Rock It Up TV. Make sure that you keep rocking loud and proud, and make sure you rock it up.
Rock It Up would not be possible without the help from our sponsors, like CFRE Radio. For more information, please visit cfreradio.com. Sherwood Mortgage Group. Longtime friends serving longtime customers. Call Chris D'Souza at 416-884-2984. Loretta and Sherilyn Flower at Remax Realty Enterprises. For more information, please visit flowerteamrealestate.com or call 905-822-2200. Nude Buddha Tattoo Studio, located at 42 Bronte Street South, Milton, Ontario. Call 905-203-0737 or visit nudebuddhatattoo.com. Mississauga Arts Council. Connect, create, engage, support. Find them at mississaugaartscouncil.com or on Facebook and Twitter under Miss Arts Council.